Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, yWhales, wherever in the world you are today. So today is October 10th. A lot going on in the world right now. Bitcoin is sitting right around 27,000 and change. So it's been a relatively good market is in reference to the cryptocurrency markets. But today is a very Web3 focused podcast. So we get to talk a lot about AI. We get to talk a lot about the world and kind of how the world gets its news. And I'm very excited. I have an amazing co-host with me today, Mrs. Billingsley. Good to see you as always.
Nice to be here, Jay. Thanks for having me. Great to see everyone.
Absolutely. And so we're going to be talking about Newsworthy.ai. So real quick, let's just dive right into it. And so, Mark, would you mind kind of giving us a little bit about your background and, everything kind of prior to the company we're going to be talking to today would be great.
That's a long story, but I'll give it a shot. So my journey, I got out of business school. And I went to work for a biotechnology startup under the umbrella of Johnson & Johnson. It was one of their new biotechnology subsidiaries. And was there for a couple of years, did some product marketing, did some sales. It was fascinating. And it's kind of ironic because everything after that was startups. But you wouldn't think of being a J&J as a startup. But in this particular case, it was. So that was an interesting journey. Got a call from one of my roommates from school and said, hey, my brother's got this really cool employee benefits HR technology company he's starting up in Connecticut. Would you like to do it? And I bailed. I think my family thought I was crazy joining a startup, coming from J&J and basically not making any money at the new startup. Good times. It was in the HR technology space. I think we grew from 400,000 to about 40 million in just under 7 years. I was in charge of marketing at that organization. And then we had an event and I chose to leave. It was a good event, but I chose to leave and moved out to California. I was back east and I decided to start a company myself, which at the time was called HR Marketer. And it was a SaaS platform that would help companies like, the ADPs, the Oracles, the Paychecks, help them selling into the niche world of employee benefits, payroll, HR technology, and ran that company for a number of years. That's how I met David McInnis. We needed a press release distribution feature within our SaaS product. And at the time, PR Web was just starting to grow, and I liked what they were doing. At the time, there was good SEO benefits of it, and it was easy to use. So I started calling David and didn't return my calls, I think, for the first couple of months or emails. And eventually he did. We hit it off. He helped me out. Eventually he did his own thing, which he'll tell you about.
You actually showed up at my doorstep.
Yes, that's right. I flew up to Washington to meet you. And then in the meantime, I started a couple other companies up. David kind of went his way. I went my way. Several years ago, David called me up and said, hey, we're doing some, and we've been working together, to some extent. He says, hey, I got a great new idea. Nothing's really changed in the press release newswire distribution business since he had sold PR Web. He says, I got some ideas. I heard him out. I said, wow, this is pretty incredible. And that was about, nearly 2 years ago. We founded Newsworthy together, and here we are. So that's my story.
Fabulous. Well, we're excited to dive into the platform here in a second. But David, let's circle around with you and really hear a little bit more of, kind of what brought you to the table on this.
Well, I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. I think I was the only one in my high school that was work released to himself. And so I got to do work release to myself in my senior year. And I thought that was great. But I went on to college here in Texas. And when I got out of college, 1995, the internet was just starting to become a thing. And I started a website building and hosting company. And talk about a hard sale in 1995. Not only did you have to try to sell what you were doing, but you had to try to sell the base technology and why somebody needed to do it. And so I sent out a press release in 1996. I sent out a press release and got nothing. It did me no good. It just made me $600 less wealthy. And so that kind of bothered me. And when I was thinking about it, and I'm thinking about what do press release newswires do anyway? They just send press releases to journalists. And this is where a certain amount of naivete kind of works, I guess, because I just jumped in and said, I'm going to create a newswire. And This was when banner ad rates were $40 CPM. And so I thought, if I could get 1 million page views a month, I can make $40,000 a month. And that's a pretty good income for my family. So I'll do it. And the question then became, how do you get 1 million page views? And my solution was, there are all these search engines out there. I'll just optimize my press releases so they show up really high on the search engines. And Google wasn't even a big player then. There were others, Excite, Northern Light, a whole bunch that don't exist anymore. And so,
you tripped down memory lane for those.
So that's kind of the genesis of PR Web, is just accidental magic and not knowing what I didn't know. And it turned out that the search engine play was huge for us. Now, 2 weeks later, after I had this epiphany to start this thing, and I actually launched the first version of PR Web, ad rates from Yahoo went from $40 CPM to $3. And I never really made money on advertising. So I just put up a link, said, hey, if the service is useful, send us $10. It became like a share-worthy thing. And people started sending money. And so I started adding little gold stars. A whole lot of gimmicky things. And pretty soon people were, putting a whole bunch of gold stars on their press releases. And pretty soon I was making $80,000 a month. And so I think the most I ever made from press releases was $167 a month with advertising. So I just took all the advertising off. And the deal I made is you own the page and it's your content. And the market really responded well. And the SEO value was tremendous. And so we discovered, we had people coming to us like Southwest Airlines and saying, hey, we want to use your service. What's your value? What kind of journalists do you reach? And I'm like, any journalist that has access to Google. That was my very naive answer, right? I mean, we do one thing well, and that's online search visibility. And if you want Newswire type services, you're going to probably have to go somewhere else. Well, they stuck with us, actually, Southwest Airlines, and they started promoting us through their agency in conferences, talking about their success and their results. And so everything just grew from there. And really, PR Web was more of a marketing platform than a Newswire. The format's really good for building trust. It's not a blog post. It's not an article. It's the structure of the news, the marketing content as news really works for people. And so we just created this whole news marketing paradigm, and that's what we're running with today. PR Web, and the whole industry, though, is kind of now, it's been stuck in 2006. It's turn of the century technology for a world that has moved far beyond turn of the world technology. And the innovation that you see in the industry now is, I won't call them out by name, but one Newswire came out 2-3 months ago with, hey, we've upgraded our platform and all this new exciting technology. And it turned out that new technology that they had implemented was all about helping submit a press release through their complicated system in the first place, how to submit a press release, and had zero benefit to the reader, to the consumer. It was all about helping the agency and Business Wire get their job done, but nothing that improved the visibility of the news. And so that's kind of, I really think we're onto something where we're able to just kind of reinvent this space again and breathe new life into it. And we're moving away from the terminology of Newswire. We don't really want to be classified as a Newswire. We scratch that itch, if you will. We meet the minimum requirements. We buy all the distribution that everyone else buys. But with the help of actually Jessica early on, we actually kind of decided to rebrand ourselves as a news marketing platform and really focus on, hey, it's not about how many distribution endpoints you get to. It's about how many of the right people you get to and helping companies maximize their visibility in the news stream. Well, so that's where we're at today.
Yeah, so you very much have, the history in the background. Both of you understand from two different perspectives. One's the advertiser and or the company that needs the marketing, and then you were kind of a web one titan in yourself. Kind of really building out that industry. And thank you for the time and energy and effort. Way back in the web one days, because there was good visionaries like yourself that said, like, there's a better way to do this. It doesn't have to be complicated. So love hearing the story and the pivots along the way of how do you monetize this, because it's very hard. Even in Web3 right now, we're seeing the integration of blockchain, cryptocurrencies, AI, and all these immersive technologies, and no one really understands what is the business model of Web3. So with that being said, I'd love you to kind of continue on with Newsworthy.ai and exactly what it does, how it's helpful, and why it's going to kind of be a player in the game, so we can understand what it's going to be.
Yeah, well, let me just back up to about 2021. We're middle of COVID kind of times, and I start to play around with training my own models for press releases, because I'm thinking about getting inside. So we were kind of, Newsworthy.ai was a thing before AI blew up last year, right? But the focus back then was I was training these models to actually work with press releases to be more deterministic on deciding what makes a good press release. Why does one press release outperform another press release? What kind of language changes could we make to actually make the press release more relevant? And so that was the path I was heading down. And so that's where the .ai came from. And we were going to use AI, playing around with AI for distribution purposes. Everything is to try to make the process smarter. And we weren't, quite honestly, generative wasn't even on my radar at that point, because I wasn't using AI in my mind to solve those kind of problems. The generative AI thing came out really strong this year, and we were already there, right? And so we were able to, rather than this mad rush to say, okay, we have to bolt this on somehow to make our story about AI, we were already there. And that was really an exciting moment for us to realize, hey, we're in the right spot at the right time. And the other thing we were working with is blockchain registration.
Yeah.
There are organizations out right now that are trying, like the content provenance group. They're trying to, like, because of AI, show where a story came from and have some sort of backtracking to prove origin of story. And we were already doing that on the blockchain, right? We were doing blockchain registration. We were doing it on Ethereum before Ethereum became too expensive for that to work for us. And I have a whole Ethereum story for some other time, but basically it's how I missed the boat. But anyway, so
that's okay. It's happened. It's happened to the best of us.
So
I threw away all my early Bitcoin, so don't worry.
Anyway, yeah. So it was a fun thing. It's like we were just playing around with Ethereum in 2017 or something when it was $12 a coin, and yep. I purchased a dozen coins, and I put a couple of them in my son's wallet or whatever, and he became unemployed for a while. And I said, hey, go check out your Ethereum wallet. And he had like thousands of dollars, right? So it was nice. But I wish I would have purchased like 10,000 coins.
We all have, yeah, listen, if you don't mind, when you build that time machine, allowing all of us to have access to it, because there's a few ways we all could make
so. So anyway, we were doing blockchain registration, and that's how we track provenance, of our digital content. We do that for a different reason. We do that so that customers can self-host a press release and benefit from all the traffic, right? Typically, the model works like this. You put out a press release, the press release lands on PR Newswire or Business, whatever the wire service is. They get 7,000, 8,000, 10,000 page views, and the customer gets about 6 click-throughs to their website. And so what we've done is we've turned that model around a little bit, and we said, if you agree to use the blockchain to register your press releases and install this widget on your website, then we'll let you host your own press releases. Now you get all of that traffic. You control the whole customer journey, and it's a lot more impactful for the customer. And so now instead of sending people to Newsworthy.ai or whatever press release Newswire it is, we can actually send them directly to the customer's website.
Wow.
So those are a few of the highlights, but those are just kind of tracking our origin story a little bit about the two things that we kind of launched with, and including, I think, something Mark's going to talk on with the influencer marketplace. Those are the three key pieces that we grabbed onto when we said, here's where we can make a difference in the newswire space.
Yeah. Jessica, you were going to ask something?
And maybe Mark, you were about to get into it, but certainly in our conversations, you've shared a lot about the role that blockchain plays around fake news. And I think that's an important part of your product offering and the story here, especially as this issue continues to escalate. So maybe you could just share a little bit about that functionality.
And David, I'm not sure how much we want to get into it, but we never, the reason we went down the blockchain path was really, the whole source of truth and ultimately allowing companies to host their own press releases. We thought that would be a big deal, and it has been a big deal for a lot of companies. They're just blown away by the traffic they get, and they don't have to trust our analytics or another Newswire's analytics. They just have to open up their Google Analytics or whatever analytics platform they're using, and they can see, real time the amount of traffic that press release is sending into their website. So, but more recently, and is it the C2PA? Is that the organization? We're starting to think about, we have all these tools. We're already positioned to allow companies to submit their content. Presently, it's a press release, and to have it blockchain verified. Why can't we make those tools available to any content producer to authenticate, their content? Today it's a press release. Tomorrow it could be something else. So we are building out those tools and another suite of offerings that we have to allow other content producers, other news wires to use our tools and to, register in the blockchain and verify their content. And, they can claim ownership to that, and they can, be notified as being first. But David, do you want to get into that in more details or talk about the fake news aspect that Jessica brings up?
Well, I think especially with AI, knowing the provenance, knowing where something started is important. And I think that's where the initiatives are that you see. We keep referring to the C2PA, but that's where those initiatives are heading. It's like, how can you tell where this video was generated? Was it generated with AI? What were the initial pieces used to create this content? And so, but their solutions are around audio, video, imagery, nothing to do with text-based news. And we're already there. We have a solution. I think their solutions are a little bit complicated. I haven't really thought through every aspect of their technology yet, but it seems a little complicated to me. But our solution is just so simple. It's just smart contracts on an Ethereum-based blockchain.
Well, let's take a quick second and for the viewers that may not be highly educated in this space, let's just take a second and really kind of talk about the problem and how your solution kind of is adapted to. So, one of the things that we're seeing right now is AI, and generative AI is getting much better every single day. We've seen, kind of the rise of ChatGPT. And now we're also seeing these, when we say generative AI, I'm generally referring to, it can create images, it can create photorealistic representations. And this is only going to continue to get better and better over the next few years. So having this provenance of did this really come from an actual camera? Did this really come from this actual source is becoming more and more important, because right now it's very confusing.
Yeah.
I can say during, let's just talk about something that happened is a number of a news source used a generative AI image that they made up of Donald Trump being arrested, and it showcased him being tackled by agents, and it was this. It looked relatively realistic and real, but it was entirely made up.
Let's bring that forward to something that's happening today.
Sure,
I'm watching news about what's happening in Israel, and I don't know what to trust.
I think it's very true. At any world
I
event,
really don't know. I'm going through the YouTube channels, whatever. What do I trust?
And and it becomes more important when it's that source of truth. And so you want to be able to say, there's this image of whether it's a former president being arrested or a war zone, or, quite simply just a product that you think you want to acquire, and you want to know who's attached to that. And I think that's that human element, is that, you want someone that you can say, hey, this is really Johnson & Johnson is coming out with this. Hey, this is really this court has put out this photograph, or hey, this war zone photographer, which has been in the business for 3 decades, is stating that this is their photograph. And that's kind of what we're getting at, is that, there's a real human at the end of this, and it wasn't generated by some kid in the basement trying to create chaos or more nuanced issues around the world. So that's kind of, I think, the crux of what I would like to throw out there. If Jessica, you want to throw any other,
I think the important also thing is for people who might not know how blockchain works is it's an immutable ledger. So once you register something on there, it can't change. And that's why we use it. Traditionally, newswires have served the role of kind of source of truth for a press release. They represent that the press release that's on their website today at 7:00 before the market's open, or whatever time it is the same one that's on their website after the market's closed. So people can't manipulate their news on their website for market purposes, for one example. And so when we offload that source of truth onto the blockchain, an immutable thing that can't be changed. And every time someone calls up that press release, we do a check on the blockchain to make sure that they haven't even moved a period. Right. And so that's offloading that source of truth onto the blockchain. I kind of, when I'm talking blockchain to customers, I just say, don't worry about too much what it is. Just know what it does, right? It's like, you don't talk about your website in the terms of its MySQL database or Postgres database. You talk to the functionality of what you can accomplish with those things. And I think that's where our biggest opportunities with blockchain is allowing people to access the core technology without having to have a wallet, do the hard parts, right? And just benefit from the results.
Yeah. And just one thing about David, when he was talking about, the source of truth and the press release not being able to be altered without telling you this has been altered. Even if you're self-hosting the release, when you send a news release through Newsworthy, it's still going out to hundreds of other websites across the internet. And it would be very easy without blockchain for someone to go into one of those websites or distribution points, endpoints, sometimes called, and change it. And you can't do that with Newsworthy and what we built, because it would show that this version of what you're reading is not the original, and you can click to actually view the original. But generally speaking, that's the importance of the press release side. Yeah. And,
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's, listen, the news, I think there's, I saw a story a while ago about trust in the media, right and left, doesn't matter what political affiliation you have, is at all-time low. And so the concept of clickbait articles, the concept of this, I love, believe me, I love the integration of blockchain. I hope there's some additional, features you guys put in about, how often do they write? But one of the best features I've seen lately is come out of, Twitter, or now it's called X, where you have these community notes where people are, kind of like group wise, checking and adding additional sources to articles and everything else. But what you guys are doing is just making sure, did this even come from the right person? And the reason I bring it up is I just gave, Twitter or X a praise, but during their conversion from, verified sources to anyone can have a blue check mark, somebody registered, like Boeing, something, and gave it a check mark and just said, hey, we're discontinuing all military fighter jets. And their stock dropped by like, $3 billion in a few minutes. And so that's the entire concept of like that couldn't and shouldn't happen, where you have someone just saying, hey, I'm Boeing and I'm going to make this press release. And the market reacts very quickly. And so I think that, what you guys are doing absolutely can and should be integrated. I'd love to hear a little bit more about, kind of how AI, is integrated into these press releases. Is it just blockchain based, or, is it helping to kind of write and fact check some of the things that are coming out before they come out?
Yeah. Well, and David, we can both talk a little bit about that. Originally, before when we were just starting up Newsworthy, a year and a half, two ago, one of the other benefits, remember, Chat GPT-3 was not out yet. Nothing was out yet, the generative stuff. So we were looking at AI operationally as well. So one of the biggest expenses at PR Web as the company was growing was editorial staff to read the release. And that's important for any newswire. We have our own editorial guidelines. They're very similar across all newswires, what you can say, what you can't say, what you can't promote, things like that, but also just following the AP style grammatically, making sure it's well written. So editors, that's their job. A client submits their press release. Editors, give it a look over, make some small adjustments. If it's not, properly formatted, they can deal with that. AI can really help a lot with that, so that you don't need as much, staff on the back end that's reviewing and approving press releases on a day-to-day basis. AI can actually tell you, hey, looks like this release needs to have extra attention given to A, B, and C. Check it out. So it kind of before the editor even opens the release, they have some guidance as to what might be not so good with this release, or what might violate the editorial guidelines. So that's operationally, it's not just user side. It has a lot of benefits. I've always thought that on the content side, AI is ideal for press release distribution in a way, because you're announcing something you're announcing something at the company. I just hired a new employee. We just achieved a financial milestone, or we just established a partnership with another company, or we're announcing our participation in an upcoming event. It's hard to turn that into fake news. I mean, it's factual news about your company. And because of that, I think AI is ideal for helping you to craft a draft of that announcement. It's really good. So we have those tools built into Newsworthy that you can just give us a couple, 3-sentence description of what you want to write a press release on, and we'll give you a draft. And we're very, very clear about that's a draft. It needs human, adult supervision to look it over and make it, ready for prime time. So the AI works well there. But what we also do, and we can show you this in a moment, is once you submit your press release, we use AI to analyze it, give some additional suggestions, maybe some alternative headlines that you might consider using. But we also produce a lot of what I would call complementary content that you can use in your news marketing of that news. So we can create an article or a blog post based on that press release. We can create a draft of an email pitch you can use to reach out to the journalist, and a number of other content assets, including a short video news short that AI helps you create. If you want to use it, great. If you don't, that's fine too. But it gives you more tools, which, just to back up a bit, the press release still has a lot of value today. We're not saying that it doesn't, but for most small and medium-sized businesses, the press release alone is probably not going to get them the visibility and engagement that they want. So you need to focus on that post-newswire marketing, which we call the news marketing. And that's how AI comes back to help create supporting content for those post-newswire marketing campaigns. And again, we'll show you some of those tools in a moment. But David, sure you have something to add on the AI side.
We'll end up going too far afield into strudel news, and basically what we're doing is we're taking all of our tools, these tools that we're talking about, and making them available through an API to any newswire who wants to use them for a fee. And we believe that they're that important, and so we'll continue to have our Newsworthy.ai service up and running, and we'll continue to do intake, but the model is out there that newswires actually buy into this kind of thing anyway. And so we're making our tools available via an API that will allow just every newswire out there to have access to these tools and for a fee. But
perfect. Yeah. No. And so monetizations is important, and you figure that out in the Web 1.
Right. So as we go forward in that endeavor with the API for the newswires, we're talking about creating AI curated news stories and some other really cool technologies I'm hesitant to talk about right now, but things that will help in the visibility of online news for not only our own news, but for other newswires to participate in.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
We had an example the other day. through our platform where somebody sent a press release out. Typical press release goes out to 400 partner sites that we have, and then through our advocacy program, somebody shares the press release on LinkedIn. And the engagement, right? It's all, within the first day, there's it doesn't sound like a lot, but for some of these small companies, it is, 500 or 600 views of the content, 15 people commenting on it and liking it, and they're not used to that. And again, if they just send a news release out and walked away, they might be questioning the value of that. I mean, there still is value in for source of truth and credibility coming out not through a blog but through a newswire. But it's that other news marketing tools that really help bring the engagement and the readership from the right audience that the small mid-sized businesses really are looking for.
Mark, I think it'd be helpful if we showed kind of the advocacy tool, because I think that's the sleeper product of our whole platform. It is so powerful. And then also the influencer marketplace.
My biggest questions relate to,
Go ahead.
And if you can talk through it, how unique is this, and how much are you guys drawing on past experience to create a product? Because we're seeing AI, everything AI is rolling out. Right now there's dozens and dozens of projects every single day that are new, that are launching things that are similar to this. You guys have been around, a little bit longer, so you're not being drawn into it, the AI front. You were here kind of the beginning, and congratulations. It's the old skating to where the puck is going, not jumping on the wave right now. So, walk us through a little bit of why, the theses of how you got here.
I think the biggest difference we have right now in our favor is that when I started PR Web, we had to start from zero. I had no experience. I didn't really know what I was doing, and we made it up as we went along. And today, where I'm sitting 20 years later, right, all that experience is behind us, and I kind of know where we're going. I can see the technology ahead of us. I feel like for the first time, the wind is at our back, and it's on us now to execute before we're facing a headwind. And that's the analogy I make a lot, is that right now we're being pushed, and it's a really comfortable spot to be in.
That's great.
And we have the advantage right now that we got into the slipstream naturally, where other companies are having to try to reimagine their platforms and their infrastructure to take advantage of some of this stuff. And some of them just won't be able to do it because of their existing infrastructure. I remember early on in PR Web Days, PR Newswire asked me if I wanted to partner with them. And I said, well, it's involved with that. And they said, well, we're going to send out, some crews, and we're going to install a satellite dish in your property. Like, you guys realize they have this thing called the internet now. Like, we could do this all online, right? So I think that I give that example because, older technologies just really take a little bit longer to catch up because they still have the old way of doing things in the infrastructure they've already invested in that they find a little harder like us. So we kind of just like slipped right into this, and I really feel fortunate that we are where we're at right now.
Yeah.
Robert.
So this, just quickly, this is the standard anatomy of a typical press release sent through Newsworthy. You can see the blockchain registration up top. You can see, the headline, embedded video. This is actually AI content, and again, we require the customer to approve anything that's AI generated on our side. But these key takeaways are automatically shown to the customer. They can approve it. We're going to be doing some interesting things with these TLDRs involving Myers-Briggs and personas, which will be, I think, great value to companies. This is a piece of AI content. I'm not going to play it, but that's a video news short on the right here, which we basically take a summary of their press release and read it, and that can be pushed out to any social media platform. You can see the body of the release with respective images, about the company, media contact, and how it's filtered. Now, once a press release goes out, and I'm just going to jump on to as if I'm a customer of our platform, and I'm creating a press release. This is just a draft press release I put together for the demo. And you can see the back end form where you enter your details for the press release. enter your news image, your social banner. Once you get to the AI suggestions, you can see how it's giving you a score. It's going to suggest your 3 takeaways, which again, I can easily edit and approve. Again, not that you're ever going to use it, but we'll give you a bunch of social media shares with actually intelligent hashtags that are appropriate for your content. We'll give you a YouTube script. We'll give you a journalist email pitch. We'll give you an article and a blog post. So there's a lot of AI content that's being produced that if you care to use it, you can actually, go out and do some additional content marketing. And we have some tools that will do that automatically for you. So one of them is the news advocacy. And this is one of those like non-technical, but silly, simple, immensely valuable tool where you can add your employees, your stakeholders, friends, family, anyone that supports your brand. You can just upload them into your system. And then every time you send the news release out, they get automatically notified. So you don't have to do it every time you send a release out, with a trackable link so you can measure who's reading it, who's sharing it, who's actually, doing something with it. And it's really valuable. And it's great when you have like Google, your analytics up and you send a press release out, you see all these, dots popping up around around the world actually, of people that are actually opening up and sharing it. And again, that story I mentioned earlier, it can lead to more visibility in the press release itself if people are using that, announcement to then share it to their own network. So that's
so we believe in this so strongly that you can see here. If a customer comes in and sets up their advocacy, we'll give them a free press release the next time out.
Because we know it's going to work. Yeah.
It's that important to their success on our platform.
Yeah.
And we want everyone to experience that.
Yeah. Now we do the same thing. I'm not going to get into it. We do the same thing with journalists. So you can use our system to find journalists and get their contact information, relevant journalists. So if you're actually, doing a release on, some sort of niche technology or crypto or whatever, you can actually use our system to find journalists whose beats include those areas. And it's kind of a unique way of tackling that position. We actually crawl a bunch of content of news articles from tens and thousands of sources, and then we match the topics that the journalist is writing about, or that article, the topics it includes, to what's in your press release. And then you can actually go in and find those articles. If they look like a good outlet, then you can just click and get the journalist information. That's a separate tool, and you don't have to automate it. You can turn it over to a media relations team to do outreach, but you can automatically notify your media list with a custom, pitch that AI helps you create, and you finalize yourself. And then once it goes out, I'm just going to go back to our platform here. Once it goes out, you can get, actually, sorry about that, go to my press releases. You can get some of those analytics. So you can see some, releases that we've already sent out down here. Advocates, 81 of them engage with the content. The general, views of the content was this, but we do report on those numbers. Now, as far as the influencer marketplace, what's kind of cool is I'm just going to find an old release. So you can, click your clipping report. We have all the great graphs and all the places it went to. And things like that. But this is actually a beta, but it's coming out very, very soon. And this is where you select influencers to further promote the press release after it goes out. And it has to be after it goes out. And what we're doing is we're matching all of the influencers who self-registered in our platform, mostly the nanos and the micros. There are some macros in here, but it's mostly the nanos and the micros. They have great influence in your particular niche, but it's not Joe Rogan or something like that. And we sort it in terms of the minimum price. A lot of influencers who are savvy charge a lower price just to build new relationships that could lead to a more profitable gig. But in this case, we're looking at the content in the press release, and then we're loading up the influencers when they self-registered and identified what their topics of expertise are. We match them to the press release, and then you can go shopping. And essentially, you can just start, find people, click them, hire them. It could be someone who's going to do a podcast or write an article about you, share on LinkedIn, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, whatever. But it's kind of a fun process to go through to find the people that are going to make sense for you. And for a relatively minimal investment, you can oftentimes, again, get far more engagement through the influencer sharing your news than you would just through the press release itself. So again, all these features that we talk about are post Newswire, and they're intended to help companies market their press releases to their audiences and build engagement with the people that matter, which are, their prospective customers or other stakeholders. David, do you want to add anything to that?
No, not really, except for the fact that when we go live, so we're not live with this service yet because we're still enrolling influencers. But when we go live with it, our price is going to jump a little bit, but it's going to jump because we're going to allocate $40 of that influencer spend, of that press release spend, towards the influencer marketplace. We want to encourage a vibrant marketplace. And so the way to do that is say, hey, here's $40 of credit. Now go spend it in the influencer marketplace.
So, David, can you say more about the size of clients of your customer, your target customer, as someone who's used many of the traditional news marketing, and I don't think there is a quote unquote traditional news marketing service out there. I think I've just used some traditional news wires that purport to have lots of different features. And they're quite expensive, and you have to have a very a sizable company to be able to invest in those services. Can you share more about your target customer and what their sweet spot is?
And unfortunately, we can talk about this later if we have time. That price is about to get a lot more expensive.
For other news wires,
for other news wires, yeah. For where my heart is. It's in the small and medium-sized business, right? I'd rather focus my energies on the 16 million rabbits than the 500 whales, and they're easier to deal. They're easier to deal with, and I think we can have a bigger impact there. But that's not to say we do get some bigger customers. Like I said, at PR Web, it was all over the place. We had a lot of different. It's just a very unique blend of customers. At PR Web, they were using us for marketing purposes, and so we had a really broad spectrum. So it became really interesting at PR Web, where I thought I was chasing PR Newswire to find out that PR Newswire was actually chasing me, and because they didn't understand truly what we did, and we were more of a marketing function. And I think that's the biggest educational. That's the aha moment for a lot of people. It's like, hey, we can do this thing and put it out there on a service that was built for market compliance, right? For my small business, that doesn't make sense. Or I could use another service that'll get me into the news stream, but at a much more reasonable structure. And we're not the cheapest solution out there, but I think we're the most equitable. I think the way we like to talk about a service is batteries included. We feel like you need access to our whole suite of tools, and so that's what we price it at. You get $129. You get everything we have, and use it or don't use it. But we believe you need it all, and so we're not going to piece it out and create different pricing tiers.
Yeah, and David, we're not doing a lot of earnings releases, Jessica, to your point. A lot of the major news wires exist because of the quarterly and corporate earnings announcements, which is very important. We're not focusing on that marketplace. We're looking at, the millions of small and mid-sized businesses and local businesses that traditionally don't necessarily think of issuing a press release. But I think as they understand what we provide for them, and we can get into some of the local things that we're doing as well to get them local visibility, I think they see the benefit of the press release, not so much as a quote unquote press release, but as a news marketing tool to announce whatever news that they have to announce. So it's a whole different market, and it's relatively untapped.
So I want to take a second and let's just circle around. And we have this concept of, you guys know the traditional industry. You've mirrored that. Everything that you felt was good from Web 1, you've pulled forward. We've added a whole bunch of new features and benefits. Where do you see kind of the next few years going for just media releases overall? Because the problem that I see is facing is garbage in, garbage out. And so, you guys are you're the facilitators of making sure it goes out, but we're seeing so many people improperly use
Go ahead
AI,
and count us in so we
that
can
they're just,
remove this flip.
they type in a 3-word prompt, something comes back and they go, great, here it goes. And here's press. Have you guys come up with the concepts of how to kind of screen? And I think you showed a few tools on this before, but to make sure that everyone's really putting their best foot forward and that, the world isn't getting clogged with a bunch of AI stuff all back and forth.
Yeah. And I think David, David will probably talk more of the technical side of it, but again, Jay, to go back to our tools that we help you draft content if you want to. We don't accept prompts. We're doing all that in the back end, so we kind of know what prompts to use to get a decent quality, draft back. But we do require the customer to do something with that draft. They can't just automate the whole process. So they set up for 5 releases the next 5 weeks and walk away, and they're all created by AI and sent out. That's not what we do. And then obviously our editorial staff is another layer to make sure that, what's being written is actually, quality format.
So what we have the ability to do on our back-end editorial platform is give each press release a score. And we do that. It's a five grades that we give a press release. You have to meet a certain bar before you go out on the broader network. That's to protect the platform, right? We don't want Benzinga pulling our feed because we put garbage on their website.
Right.
And so everything gets a score from 1 to 5. It takes pretty much a 4 or 5 to get anywhere on our network. And if it doesn't, frankly, you're going to hear from us and we're going to ask you to improve it. So
you've still integrated a human element in best practices.
Right.
Great. I love that.
Right. Because we have to protect our network.
And we'll never get away from that, Jay. Never.
Good.
We need that.
Good.
So here's the biggest, and I alluded to this earlier. Here's the biggest challenge facing the industry, and I alluded to it earlier, is that the costs are going to go up, right? As news platforms see opportunities to grab additional revenue from things like press releases, you're seeing that certain services are saying, hey, we're no longer going to accept press releases from these distribution endpoint resellers, right? The same people we're all buying distribution from, right? Because why accept $2 or $3 when we can charge $700, right? And so I think, and even for larger news wires, their licensing fees are going to go up. And so I believe that we're in a situation where companies are going to need to get a lot more creative in how they go about managing their distribution endpoints, because they're just going to be priced out of the market. Fortunately, we're kind of like skirting that whole issue because we're creating other digital assets that we've got a strategy around that. And that's just basically involves creating our own environment. We're actually becoming a media company where we can actually, whether it's our in-focus properties where we target specific industry verticals, or whether it's our busy city where we target regional and local. Local is the biggest opportunity for the newswire space. And so we're developing a suite of products for that, including radio and other local initiatives that we have, because, the internet works really well for products and companies that have a broader national appeal or global appeal. But I have in Boerne, Texas, here is a small little town of 20, 30,000 people. We have a couple of businesses here that do $20, $30 million a year. They can't get on anybody's radar, right?
And that's what you want to see, the democratization of this access to anyone in the world.
We want everybody to have access to the news stream.
Yeah.
And so Mark and I spent about an hour earlier this week talking about, what is our mission? And that's to help people get into the news stream and benefit from that additional visibility. So we have these discussions.
I love that. That's fabulous concepts. And as we kind of get ready to wrap towards a close, Jessica, is there, you got any other, questions to go through? But I think you guys have really showcased, kind of the next generation of what we've seen for, over a decade at this point. Information flows out, and I think that people want to understand, how do these articles, how do these companies, communicate with the outside world? There's still traditional companies want access. They want people to have viewership, and I think you guys have done some really amazing things to not just utilize AI, but to kind of combat AI, by using blockchain for, the proof of immutability that it did come from a valid source, and a variety of these other things, because it's, the age of misinformation hasn't even started. It's getting ready to come. And I think that's one of the most important things that I'm taking away from this, is that there is, a lot of work being done on the back end to kind of fight the AI from being able to kind of just pretend to do whatever it wants to do.
And news is big business, and it's just going to get bigger, and happy to be part of it.
Fabulous, guys. Well, thank you so much. And for people that want to use Newsworthy.ai, where can they find more? Where can they interact with you two as well?
Let me just tell you a little secret. I mean, if they reach out to Mark at Newsworthy.ai, he'll give them a demo and a free press release credit. Right. Just use the service.
Look at that.
We believe it in enough. Just use the service and you'll be sold.
Yeah. So it's Mark at Newsworthy.ai.
Fabulous. Well, we got a press release.
He's the demo side. I'm too busy building to demo right now, but Mark can definitely help you with that.
Happy to.
Fabulous. Well, thank you guys so much. Jessica, as always, thank you for co-hosting with me. For anyone that wants more information, obviously go check out Newsworthy.ai. And, yWhales always has a couple of projects on the loose. So we're going to go ahead and utilize that free credit and, try this platform out ourselves. For everyone else out there, take care. We'll talk soon.